republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bless you.
Get started.
I know.
Martin start season.
Martin's.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Grimmincher.
Here.
Alderwoman Zerwig. Here. Alderman Skaggs.
Yes. Here.
Alderman Stupi.
Here.
Alderman Jokers.
Here.
Alderman Steiger.
Here.
Alderman Oakenfoos.
Here.
Alderwoman Broomfield. Here. Alderman Ross.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Approval agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Just like to welcome all the Boy Scouts here from Troop 468 tonight. I hope you guys enjoy the meeting.
Can we get them to introduce themselves?
Sure. Yeah. Want to do that, guys?
Is there any volunteers?
My name is Jacob Smith and my rank is second class.
I'm Josh Schmidt and I'm a scout.
I'm Tyler Rogers and I'm first class.
I'm Thomas England and I'm light.
I'm Chad Dunsey and I'm a scout. I'm Jeremy LeClaire and I'm a scout.
I'm Benjamin Agger and my rank is Star.
I'm Joan Dunsey, Citizenship and then Community Merit Badge Counselor.
Oh, okay.
I'm David Warren and I'm working with the
Great. Great to have you all.
Great to have you guys.
Okay, we're going to have a review of our audit by Jeff Schroeder. He said he had another audit meeting ahead of ours, so I don't think he's here yet. We'll fit him in whenever into the agenda whenever he gets here. So we'll just skip over that and go on to City Administrator's report.
Okay, despite the fact that we haven't met, the report isn't particularly lengthy because in the holidays, people don't have meetings and things don't get done. But there are a couple of things I want to point out to you. One is that, we've been working on this sign ordinance, or signage in the city. We have to get the state permission to use the right-of-way. And, every time we do business with the state, I thought everything was resolved. And weeks go by and nothing happens, and I call the guy and he says, "Oh, I haven't turned that in yet." So hopefully now he's turned it in, and we'll get to work on that. I think we'll probably just, I don't know why we can't go ahead and do the work within the city, so we may just go ahead and start that process rather than waiting for them. I reported at our last meeting that I'd met with the people from Porter Street. Those easements have generally come in. Some of them have. The one issue that I'd like to point out is the Henderson Eisenbeiss property, which is the photo gallery and shop up on the corner. They had platted a 20-foot wide easement paralleling the property line with Mr. Bauer, and then the pipe kind of comes in at a diagonal in this easement, and she was saying, "Well, why do you need to take the whole 20 feet?" Well, we don't. So I'm having the engineer redraw that easement so that it's 7.5 feet on either side of the proposed pipeline, rather than just doing a larger 20-foot thing. And I'll submit that to her as soon as I receive it. We received the money from the Special Road District and made the deposit. I've been meeting with Big River Communications regarding telephone and internet service. 798 meeting that I attended, they've been using it, their service, and the county uses the service, and it seems to be a potential cost savings. So they've made a proposal to us, which Sue is comparing to the bills we've been receiving, and I'll make a decision on that. Hopefully we can save a few dollars on our phone bill. Of course, the concern is that you get the same level of service, which with AT&T, I guess, is not really that hard to do. There was an unveiling of artwork from Larry's daughter, Louise, at the Visitor Center. She took a picture of the John MacArthur house and framed it and did some artwork around it. It's very impressive. And I want to encourage everyone, I know it was in the paper, But I want to encourage everyone to go down and take a look at it at the Welcome Center. It is truly a work of art, and we're glad, I know the city's glad to have had it donated. Finally, I don't remember what it was now, but the day on New Year's Eve, got a call from the Visa Fraud Division that there were some unusual charges on our account. And she read them to me, and I went, well, we don't. That's not. I don't believe that's any of our charges. And the days they were made was weird. So we on January 2nd talked to the staff to find out which ones were legitimate charges that they had made and which ones weren't. And there was about $4,000. $3,500 of charges weren't ours. So somebody got our number and was using it to charge computer stuff. So we got the charges stopped. They will not be on our account, and the police department is going to pursue an investigation in hopes that we find out it's not a local person and not somebody related to city government. But I think we need to do the investigation, even though we've avoided all but the minor charges. And that concludes my report.
Anybody have any questions? Going to the staff reports, got one here from the fire department, and I leave Mick's here tonight if anybody has any questions for him about his report.
Mayor and Board, you have my report in front of you, so if I can answer any questions, I'd be glad to, and now I'll be as brief as possible.
I've got one. If it says that you've got 3 positions available,
That's correct.
can you do a little infomercial while you're up there and maybe let somebody?
Thank you for pointing that out there. Yes, we have been looking for volunteers to fight fire, and especially volunteers to fight fire during the day. If anybody is interested, please stop by, give me a call, give one of my firemen a call. Stop by the firehouse on a Wednesday evening. We'll be glad to kind of tell you what we're all about and what it entails. It is quite arduous. There's a lot of training involved, but I think if you talk to my guys, there's a significant reward in the fact of doing something good in return to the community. So if there is anybody out there wishing to join our ranks, give us a call. We'll be glad to talk to you. Thanks for that plug.
Thank you. Okay. Alliance, Terry.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. I'm coming, I'll be up here and answer any questions I can. Steve's pretty sick. He's in the hospital a couple times. 105.
Oh, you're making me feel lucky. I said, you're making me feel lucky.
There's always somebody worse off. Yes, that's true. I think you all have a copy of our report in front of you. You'll notice that we've missed a few meetings, with the holidays and stuff. So this is the November report. The next report, I think Steve will give at the next meeting. But I would point out, I know you're aware, we've had a few main breaks here recently. Guys have been working lots of long hours. I think last Friday night got done at 4 a.m. and then Saturday another one, and then Monday of this week, while I was here in City Hall talking with Pam, somebody called in with low pressure, and we went and found another one. So significant amount of them right now. It's just the time of year, the system the way it is, but improvements are being made, and infrastructure, I feel it's better today than it was.
How helpful has that mini excavator been?
That mini excavator has been an amazing tool for no more than we've had it, no longer than we've had it. The holes are smaller, on the smaller leaks. We can dig a smaller hole, the patch then is smaller. It's just really a nice tool. We hope to be able to use it, changing a lot of water meters this summer, taking the meters out of the basements, working in the yards, and you don't have to have the heavy backhoe and stuff there. So, I'm sure we'll have to use the larger backhoe at times when they're bigger areas and stuff, but I really do feel that mini excavator is going to be able to be the machine we use on probably 90% of the work we do. It's really a great tool. Is there any questions? Thank you.
Okay, committee reports. Okay, thanks. Then I did see,
I've got one, next Friday, a week from tomorrow, we do have a tourism meeting that's open to the public at 9:30, here at City Hall, 9:30 in the morning, next Friday, the 18th, I believe, next Friday.
Oh, next Friday.
Tuesday night,
18th.
TIF committee meeting.
What,
Well, now, TIF committee.
yeah, that's on, we're talking about meetings, there is the first meeting of the TIF commission will be on Tuesday night at 7, I believe.
I got 6.
6.
6?
What's the date? It's next
Tuesday.
It is
Next
6.
15?
15
Tuesday.
At 6 o'clock, that's right.
Here.
Here. How do
And I did see, I think I saw Jeff sneak in here, didn't I? All right, well, that'd be a good time for you, sir, if you wouldn't mind. You all have a copy of the budget, or not the budget, the audit, sorry, in front of you.
First of all, I wanted to apologize for coming slipping into the meeting late. I do appreciate you extending me the hospitality though, because I'd gotten in touch with Sue earlier, and it turned out that I had 2 city council meetings scheduled tonight, and I appreciate you allowing me to attend the first one and then come in here when I did. So, like I said, I hate to slip in late, but thank you for letting me do that. It looks like you got quite a bit of things to take care of tonight, so I'm going to try to make this no longer than it has to be. I think I recognize faces. I think most of you have heard me talk about these financial statements before. So what I'd like to tell you is that the opinions and the reports in this report are unchanged from last year. We have an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That means that my opinion is that these are fairly stated in all material respects in accordance with the modified cash basis of accounting. If you don't need to hear the whole spiel again, then that's what this report is on the financial statements. We've done the same report on our observations of the internal controls and compliance, and I figured that's probably the part of the report that everybody's most interested in anyway, so I'll go to that part. The rest of the financials, I believe you all are familiar with the numbers that are in there, so I don't think there's probably any reason to point out any specifics in the numbers. With one exception that I'll mention in just a minute, there were no significant adjustments to these financial statements, so that's why I know you're familiar with the numbers already. That leads me to the recommendations that we had to do, that we wanted to make. We had to make a couple of significant adjustments to the numbers, the financial statements for the debt service fund. And there was a very good reason for that. In years past, we've never had this recommendation. You've not heard me come in and talk about needing to make big changes to your numbers before. You had a very unusual transaction during this past year. When you refinanced the bonds, those transactions were taken care of on your behalf by the bank. And some of the very significant transactions just didn't get recorded in your books. They were handled on your behalf. The transactions that were recorded in your financial statements were the transactions that took place here at the city. And unfortunately, we just missed a couple of big ones. When the bonds were refunded, the proceeds of the new bonds were actually placed into an account in the city's name on the city's behalf. And then those proceeds of the new bonds were used to pay off the old bonds. That's how the refinance took place. Unfortunately, the accounting principles require that that should have been recorded as a receipt in your financial statements and as an expenditure. The long end of it is that the statements ended up in the right place, but they just missed those receipts and disbursements of the same amount. So your revenues were understated, your expenditures were understated. So we had to make an adjustment to get those in there. Now, I don't want to make it look like there were errors and problems and what happened to the bookkeeping department, why didn't they get their job done? It was an unusual transaction. It was done on their behalf by somebody else, and I think that explains the why on why this happened. Unfortunately, me as the auditor, anytime that we have to make a significant adjustment to the financial statements, it's an automatic recommendation that we have to point out to the board that adjustments were made. And the reason is because you have been using these financial statements to make decisions on, budgetary decisions, a variety of things like that, and we have to let you know that they were missing some transactions even though you were placing reliance on them. Hopefully that's not causing any significant problem for the board, given that that was a kind of a one-time transaction. It was, I could probably count on one hand the number of times that, since I've been doing this audit, that a refinance transaction like that took place. That problem led to the second recommendation that I had to make. Once we made that adjustment, we basically added over $2 million worth of expenditures to your debt service fund. Well, your budget didn't see that coming. And whenever the end of the year came up and it was time to do budget amendments if necessary, the transaction hadn't been recorded, so it appeared that there was no need to do a budget amendment. So we come in to prepare the audit, we make the adjustment, now you've got all of these expenditures that you didn't plan for. So unfortunately, that led to the recommendation that we had to make for compliance with budget laws. So basically now your expenditures exceeded your budgetary limits. So we made that recommendation that you need to refrain from doing that. That's the technical wording that's in there for the recommendation, although I think everybody realizes the cause of what caused that. And I don't think it had to do with the city's ability to monitor their budgets. I think it had to do with that unusual transaction that just didn't get recorded. So that's why I really wanted to spend my time tonight just talking about those two things and what had happened. Other than those transactions, the audit was very routine for us. We've done this for several years. We found the books to be in pretty much the condition we expected. Like I said, outside of those two transactions, there would have been no recommendations at all with the report. So, yeah, I'd be glad to discuss anything further if anybody has any questions about those things.
There's no need to do a budget amendment at this time, correct?
Exactly. It's done and it's passed.
And I don't know what to say. The fact that we were refinancing this debt is not a secret to anyone. And I think it would have been unreasonable of us to expect Sue to have known about this accounting standard. And I'm not trying to point fingers, but all somebody had to do was tell her, and she would have done it. So there, and it's just not the kind of thing that a person would routinely know.
Generally, we can tell the difference between an honest mistake and when somebody's intentionally trying to hide something. And I would be approaching this much differently if I thought there was any intent to mislead or defraud. But we believe this was just an accounting treatment. I say, the audit wouldn't be done if we suspected that. We would still be working.
Sue, we appreciate everything.
Yeah.
I think you explained it quite well of how it happened and how it was noticed and everything like that. I'm sure that Sue has the same transaction that has been done correctly.
Well, she knows exactly what to do now, and she knows that we're always available too. If the odd or the unusual happens, you know, we can put our heads together, and I think we'll be able to come up with the answer. But, you know, and I don't fault Sue either because, for not calling us during the year, because once she got done with the transactions that she needed to record that she had made, her ending balances for that month reconciled to the bank statements, and they should have. You would expect them to. So it appeared that everything was right.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Like I say, if you think of something after the fact, I know that's what always happens to me. I think of what I wish I would have said or wish I would have asked, but y'all know where to find me, and I'll be glad to try to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
And Sue, thank you.
Yeah.
Nice job again.
Yes.
Never get tired of saying that.
Yeah. She does. The whole story.
Okay, going to the, on with the agenda, we have the minutes of the December 13th meeting.
Last year, I have a move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And approval of the minutes of the December 27th meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And financial statements for November.
Approve.
Second.
Question.
Okay.
Do we have a monthly setup with Cameraman's Pest Control?
Yes.
So they just come monthly to even in December for termites or pests or what? Okay.
That's part of the package program.
Well, you know, you can buy any level of service that you want.
I think different departments have them at different times.
Anything else?
All the same place every month.
Yeah, you wouldn't think so.
We made some of our annual payments in this cycle, but Taylor Engineering, there was one for $3,100. I assume that was either Market
It's the
Street.
Market Street.
So are we finished finally with the engineering costs from Taylor and the corrections?
Well, there'll be inspection services during construction.
You know, it kind of looks like we're kind of keeping pace in our general fund. If you look at it, if you take away the additional court fines and also the one community grant, we're about flat. So from comparison of November 11 and November 12, it's not any growth.
We didn't project any.
Yeah, it'd be nice though.
Yeah, it would be great. But we budgeted with the expectation they would remain flat for a year.
Anything else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, resolution 2013, number 9, a resolution of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri, authorizing the city administrator to execute an agreement to extend the date of notice to proceed for the Safe Routes to School project with CE Contracting Incorporated.
Move to approve.
Second.
I got that set. Due to the weather, we're going to let them, we're going to extend it out. When were they talking about?
March 1st.
March 1st?
Now, I talked to the contractor, and he said, you know, if things, I said, yeah, fine. If you think you want to start earlier, call me. I don't have a problem with that. Because they want to get started as soon as they can. I mean, they don't want to put it off.
Yeah.
We're gonna let 'em.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Yeah,
At this,
that's what I'm thinking.
at this time, at 7:25, we'll open a public hearing. Mayor and Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Genevieve will hold a public hearing to consider a request for a special use permit to operate a home occupation from the residents at 25 North 4th Street, located in an R2 general residential district. The nature of the home occupation is an art studio and gallery. This request is from Suzanne Thompson, and I believe she is here tonight. If anybody would like to ask her any questions, it was unanimously approved by Planning and Zoning. You all have a copy of that in your packet. Oh, wait a minute, if there aren't any other questions, it's 7:26. We'll close the public hearing, and if somebody would like to make a motion to approve the special use permit, we can do that. Now you can do that, Chuck. Okay, all in favor of granting the special use permit? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, new business, bill number 3902, first reading.
An ordinance calling and providing for the holding of an election within and for the city of St. Genevieve County, Missouri, to be held on Tuesday, the second day of April, 2013, for the purpose of submitting to the qualified voters of the city of St. Genevieve, Missouri, on the question of increasing the tax rate of the city of St. Genevieve, Missouri, in compliance with state law, prescribing the form of ballot to be used, setting out the form of notice of said election, and directing its publication.
Move to approve.
Second. Thank you.
Discussion.
Yeah. Anybody?
This is public comments.
If there's not any discussion, this is obviously the request for the tax increase to create a replacement program for fire department apparatus or equipment. This will be the first reading.
Mayor, I guess
Yes.
the work session, the first work session I was at, you were talking about you were gonna go talk to some of the businesses it's gonna benefit. Did you go talk to
We
them?
didn't get to any of them yet, and didn't want to have to rely on that as part of whether it was actually gonna happen or not.
Mayor?
Yep.
I'd just like to make a couple public comments. There's been a long history of working on this replacement plan for the fire department. At least 5 years, I think the chief has had it in the works, and I think he brought it to us almost 3 years ago. And I'd have to say that the fire department probably has done most of the heavy lifting on this. It kind of puts the fire department on an even keel with some of the other departments finally, so they don't have to come to us every 5 or 10 years and beg for money and ask for a bond issue or ask. I think this is finally something where it gets our volunteers and our fire department on an even keel with some of the other departments. So I know I've been pretty vocal of asking the fire department a lot of questions, and I think deep down they appreciate that. I hope so. And I would like to call the board to have a unanimous vote on this to help the fire department to get this passed. It's not just for them, it's for the entire city. I believe that it's a good plan, and that I think it actually could save a lot of the citizens some significant money through homeowners insurance and just actually provide even better service than what we have now. So,
Well said. Anything else? All right, then all in favor?
Aye.
There is an amendment to the ordinance in front of you that would include a rate that you're going to be asking the voters to approve. And Mr. Toma will read that rate to you and ask you to amend the ordinance to approve that rate.
And based on the $59,746,327 assessed valuation as reported to us by the county clerk's office, the rate needed to generate the funds to achieve the fire apparatus replacement program is .134. That would be added to the general revenue on the residential and commercial assessments. and agricultural, as far as that goes,
Per 100.
per 100. Commercial is more. Well, the rate's the same. It's the percentage of assessed valuation difference. It's 12% for agricultural, 19% for residential, and 32% for commercial.
Okay, so then we did have a motion and a second.
They need an
And then-
amendment.
Okay. Sean made a motion for the amendment. Okay.
To add the.
To put the rate in.
.134.
Okay, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
As a business owner, I just don't think it's fair that I gotta pay that much.
Okay. And then we will, somebody want to make a new motion for the amended version?
First reading of the amendment.
So moved.
Second.
Then all in favor of the first reading of bill number 3902?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
No.
We'll need a second reading for January 22nd.
Okay.
Can we, while we're on, can we decide what day because if we want to get this on the ballot, we need to have a second meeting. Can we decide that now while we're actually talking about it?
Or, sure.
It has to be before the 22nd?
We have to submit the ballot on the 22nd,
Do we want to do it?
about the 22nd.
Is there a time frame, like 24 hours before?
That's the day we have to turn it in.
Can we do it on 21st?
Holiday,
On May, on the 15th, 5:15.
Can you give as far out as you can? Mayor, can we do the 17th of
The
January?
17th work?
There's court that night, as long as you do, can you do it at 5?
I can.
Firehouse?
Firehouse?
Yeah, we could.
Firehouse at, what time?
What night?
17th.
It's a Thursday.
Thursday.
Oh, court's here. City.
Well, we do the Wednesday night here.
We'll be here.
I can,
Wednesday
Tuesday or
can't be here
Thursday that
Wednesday.
week, I got class to go on.
Okay.
Thursday.
Thursday. Wednesday?
16th?
Wednesday?
At 5?
Why can't we
No.
end up
Anytime.
on Monday? We can
Have
have
to
a
be
meeting
late.
on Monday. The city hall won't be open.
I don't usually get back until around
Yeah,
6:30 or
holiday.
7 or later.
We can still have a meeting.
7 on the 16th?
7?
7 on the 16th?
That's fine with me.
16th?
At 7?
16 to 7 is fine with me.
16th? Sounds good to everybody? All right.
7 here?
7 here.
That's not municipal court?
No, the court's the 17th.
All right.
We're gonna get a packet.
116 at 7?
16th at 7 o'clock.
Here.
Here.
City Hall, 16.
Okay, any public comments?
I can make that.
7.
Anyone?
7 o'clock, yeah, I don't get out of
All right.
class till 6:30, 7.
All right.
Public comments? Anybody?
I didn't know exactly where the city was at on this fire apparatus situation. You know, we've got some young men up here that are going, taking citizenship classes up at school, and they teach us how one department is an offset to another department. And gentlemen and ladies, we haven't been practicing that for a number of years in our town. We seem to come up with deals all at one instant, and before you know it, they got in front of the board and getting it approved. And that's not right. That's not how our country was set up. And that's what they're not being taught that in school. We're doing just the reverse of what they teach in school. And I think that's important that we bring it to your attention. And I just wanted to mention that. And I have a problem with knowing the statistics of our community. Our community had a population 50 years ago of the same numbers as but yet over the period of time, these communities have all exceeded us in population. Perryville had about 4,000. It has about 8,000 today. St. Genevieve was about what it is today. And we go up to Crystal City, Festus. Festus is about 3 times what it was. But the real one is Farmington. Farmington was about 4,000 50 years ago. Today, it's 18,000. But the point I wanted to make, I don't think it's fair that the citizens of St. Genevieve should be straddled with a fire department that's the same size that it was 50 years ago. That's not right to burden those people. And we're getting to be an older community. A lot of people are retired. And to put another 15 cents on them, I don't think that's right. I don't think it's right. And what's wrong with Mississippi Lime taking on the burden of a $650,000 apparatus? It's for their use. There was a time when a large percentage of the citizens of St. Genevieve were employed by Mississippi Lime. That's not true anymore. It's about 25% today. I don't think that we should be assuming the responsibility for it. But I'm all for what we've got. We've got an excellent fire department. We've got excellent management. But I don't think that the people, like, I put myself in that category. I don't think I should be responsible for having a fire department with that kind of responsibility. And that's all I wanted to say. I mean, I don't think you look around, you're at your neighbors, at the age of your neighbors, and the size of their families. And is it their responsibility to have a fire department? I ask you. That's all I have to say. I just wanted to make a statement.
Thank you,
Mayor and Board, for me personally, as the fire chief and as a taxpayer, I appreciate the fact that you all know what is happening in this community. and the fact that fire apparatus get old and get worn out, and they have to be replaced, and that is the case today. So I'm going to give you just a little data, and for the public out there to understand that, yes, this is a tax increase, and understand you're volunteer firefighters, people that do this for nothing. We're also taxpayers. So the solution to this problem came at, as Mr. Steiger pointed out, great discussion and weighs heavily on us as it does anybody else. But as taxpayers, we look at this as a monetary issue as well as a safety issue as far as the firemen go. So we looked at, bring this to the board, we polled some insurance companies. And what you're going to hear from these volunteers is we're going to bring this to the public through the voice, through media and word of mouth, and anybody that has a question. And I'm going to be hopefully working closely with Toby and Don on this issue, and to be answering any questions that anybody has out there. So it comes down to this. You're going to hear a lot about a agency called the Insurance Service Office. It's called the ISO for short. And the Insurance Service Office is an independent agency that uses mathematical formulas to evaluate a fire department's ability to save lives and property. So I can't go out there as the fire chief of St. Genevieve and say, my fire department is a whole lot better than this fire department. There has to be data to prove that. So this is an agency that comes in and audits the city's water department, their 911 system, and the biggest component of that is the fire department. And then the insurance companies use that to regulate how they sell you fire insurance. And ISO ratings go from a low of 1 to a high of 10. So if you're a 10, you're gonna be out there at a $100,000 home. You're gonna be paying a whole bunch for fire insurance. We are very, very proud with the support we got back when we built the new firehouse and we bought a new fire apparatus at that point. We were at a Class 7. ISO came in, we invited them in to give us an audit. They came in and we took our rating down to a Class 4, which is something we're extremely proud of. In 2007, there was about 1,400 fire departments in the state of Missouri. We were 128 with a Class 4 rating. So there was only 128 fire departments in the state of Missouri with a Class 4 rating or lower. So this includes the Kansas Cities, the St. Louis's, the Columbia, Missouris, and things like that. So we're extremely proud of that rate. Having good equipment is a big component of that. Having dedicated volunteers that spend numerous hours training is a big component of that. So it comes down to this. We're looking at a fire apparatus replacement program. We have 3 major pieces of equipment, 2 big pumpers and a ladder truck. We have, in the past, purchased these apparatus to space them out 10 years apart. So basically and we're keeping our apparatus 30 years. The NFPA says you ought to turn them over in 15. People in St. Louis that are used the heck out of them, they're getting rid of them in 12. Some people that don't use them as hard, they're getting rid of them in the age of about 20. We're keeping our apparatus 30 years. So we've got our 3 major apparatus that make up the biggest component of our ISO rating, spaced out every 10 years. So every 10 years, we've got a 30-year-old apparatus that comes up to get replaced. So that's why we're looking at not just crawling up on your door today and asking to purchase this fire apparatus, to replace this fire apparatus. The money's the same. We're going to pay for this truck in 10 years, and then we're going to crawl up on your door again and ask for more money. So we want to promote this so that the department in the future can go about making and keeping the city of St. Genevieve one of the safest places as far as fire insurance rating is concerned in the state of Missouri. I want to share with you some data here, and this is what we're going to be looking at. If you own a $100,000 home, and that's about the average, $99,000, I think, and if you haven't heard Martin's interview on the radio, I encourage you to hear that. He did a very good job with that. But the average home in the city of St. Genevieve is about $100,000. We polled the insurance companies, several of the local insurance companies, and if we would slip from a Class 4 to a Class 5, your fire insurance rate, your fire insurance premium would go up on a range from $100 to $139 a year. Well, we're going to only ask you for $25. $25.50 is going to be the increase in your tax to keep that rating from slipping. If you have a $200,000 home, it's going to range from your increase is going to range from $160 to $197. We're going to ask you for $51. If you have a commercial establishment, let's say it's worth $200,000, your assessed valuation is $200,000. Your insurance premium could go up $479. We're only going to ask them for $86. If you got a $300,000 business, the potential for your fire insurance premium to go up is about $610. We're going to ask you for $129. So I think if you do the math, and we're going to do our best to bring this to the public in the next month and to promote this. And obviously, we're putting our insurance companies on notice. These are very broad rates, and as you might know, a $100,000 house that I own, and Mr. Jokers might have a $100,000 house that he owns, and because of he keeps his gasoline out in the shed, which is detached, and I keep mine in the garage, I may get a higher rate than him. But there's all kinds of those kind of caveats to be had. So just keep in mind, these are base rates. We're going to bring this data to the public, and hopefully you'll see it our way. And we think, number one, the fairest way to do this is to bring this issue to the voters. And what I would like to say as a firefighter and a taxpayer is, what do you want your fire department to be? If, as Mr. Marler states, that you don't think that the fire department should be what it is today, vote no. But if you believe in what we believe in, and believe in this fire department and the fact that we're doing our part, we're going to keep doing our part, I think, as a taxpayer, I think it's worth our effort. So, thank you, Mayor. Forward.
Mayor, I got a question. What's the difference on your ISO rating? I've already had a bunch of people wanting to know whether you got a ladder truck or a fire truck, if you replace it with that.
I just found a little bit of that data today. We know, see, here's the issue with the ladder truck and the fire truck, okay? The problem is today with the ladder truck that we have, that it has not passed its pump certification, it will not pass its pump certification, and it will not pass its ladder certification. Now, number one, this is a fire truck. This is a pumper truck. This has hose, this has water, this has a pump on it. This is a fire truck. So fortunately or unfortunately, it's got a ladder on it too. We came, when I talked about spacing our apparatus out, 10 years apart back in 1999, we came to this board and we said, we want to buy used fire apparatus to put in here so we can space these out, because we don't want all these things jumbled up, and now we have 2 fire apparatus to buy, and then, a long space of time, and you got another one. That board asked us at that time, why don't we have a ladder truck? Oh, I don't know. I forget really what our answer was. It might have been something like, well, we didn't think you'd let us buy one. So they gave us a budget, and we went out and found a ladder truck within that budget and put it in there, okay? So then with the acquisition of the new firehouse and the new pumper we bought then, we were able to take from that rating from a 7 down to a 4. Now, to answer your question, we know that if we lose a fire truck, if we lose the pump capacity, and there are numerous safety issues that we'll expand on with the public once we get out in a campaign, we know we'll go to a 5. And these differences that I explained to you here, for a $100,000 house, you're going to range from your insurance premium going up from $100 to $140. We're going to ask for only $25. That's the slip from a Class 4 to a Class 5. Now, I just gave Joe and Martin some information that our Class 4 rating is about right in the middle. And that's with 3 engines, 3 pumpers. And even back in 2007 when we got that, we had that marked on there, 3 engines, here's where we are, Class 4. If we had 2 engines, we would slip to a Class 5, and which would be a high Class 5. And we believe, without calling ISO today, we believe that because of the ladder credit, that will slip us to a 6, to 2 ratings. So I can guarantee you, you're going to slip 1 rating.
Well, I was told by a fireman that all ISO's interested in on that truck is the pumping capacity. They could care in the least about the ladder part.
Well,
the pumping's all they're interested in any fire truck because a lot of communities can't afford a ladder truck.
You have that fireman call me, and I'll get out the ISO books, and I'll tell you that. Was it one of my firemen?
No.
Okay.
No. There was somebody that stumbled
Okay.
across. He told me the most
Point
important is your water department, your water plant, the size of your storage tanks, which
Well,
makes sense.
I'm sorry,
Next.
you can tell that fireman for me that he is wrong, and give me a call, come in, we'll sit down,
Well,
I'll
then why don't
work
you
it, run him
give
through
me
the
the-
mail.
I tried looking it up online, and I can't find it on the internet anywhere. What justifies the ISO, like whether it's the most important, which makes sense. Why have an elaborate fire department if we got a 10,000 gallon tank instead of a 300,000? You can't pump the water if you don't have it. And so the next one is your fire hydrant, which makes sense.
Well, evidently, you have an expert there that maybe I ought to talk to.
Your water department accounts for about 40% of that ISO rating. Your
That's
fire
pretty
department-
good.
Well, your fire department accounts for more, it accounts for 50% of that rating. So what Mick is telling is true, and the 3 engines get us into that Class 4, and if you would lose one of those engines, one of those pumpers, it very well could lose up to 2 classifications. It definitely would make you lose 1 ISO, but we're right on the cusp where it might actually even make us slip 2 ISO ratings.
You can obviously put your fingers on that and get all of the stupid, that information. I mean, as far as.
As far as where we are, I think I just gave you
No,
a
I
copy
mean,
of that to
as
Joe.
far as how they rate,
Yeah.
how they rate. I know it might be too much, but can you, get the high points?
Yeah, I will work on it.
All right.
I mean, we live in the show me state, and you're gonna have to show these
Okay.
people if you want any escrow.
Well, let me ask you to do something for me. Honestly, contact your insurance company.
I done already did.
Okay, and what will your insurance go up if you slip from a Class 4
They
to
didn't
a
get
Class
back
5?
with me yet.
Okay, would you let me know when they did? Tell you what, I'll trade you that information. I'll tell you what a ladder truck's gonna do for me if you tell me what your insurance is doing.
What, are you gonna trade the information like the band that time, the motor and that, or what?
Nick, can you explain that it's not really a ladder truck?
Well, yes, and
It's
this
not
is.
really a ladder truck. And
this
when I
is-
was there, and Mr. Steiger was so gracious to show me, because I was confused about the ISO and what their points are. Everything is like calculated and pointed, and
In
this,
hundreds of a tenths of
this
a point.
vehicle was, I was like, what's that hose? He's like, oh, that's the air hose, so that we keep our air brakes plugged in, because the air brakes constantly go out on it. And Mr. Heller was so gracious to say that he would not climb to the top of that ladder in fear that he would fall off of it, and how dangerous that truck is. I
Well,
mean,
yeah, and the innovations in a truck today, and the safety considerations of a truck today are significant compared to a 30-year-old apparatus. And here's the issue, we brought this to the board as to, I mean, it's over $30,000 to repair this truck, and if you did, what do you have? You still have a 30-year-old apparatus. So it's just time to buy a fire truck. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, this truck has a ladder. So,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to address the board? Sure.
Mr. Mayor, I've been known to own several homes around here, and mine are all with one company. Mine are all with State Farm and have been for 40 years. State Farm tells me that they do not use ISO numbers. That's a lot of hogwash. The only ones that use ISO are small communities. I just wanted to, because I keep asking them about it.
We did, and I know in the research, and the board was presented with it at the last meeting, you're right. State Farm does not use the ISO. They have their own way of rating it, and I believe it's by zip code.
Would you like me to explain that?
And they are the biggest writer of insurance in St. Genevieve.
But most of the other ones, and not all of the other ones that they did survey, did use that system. So State Farm was the only one that didn't. All the other ones that were surveyed, all the other local ones did use the ISO rating. So, yeah, you're right, and they're right. I mean, so you are right that State Farm does not use the ISO, but everybody else that was contacted that was local did use the ISO.
But I've heard this story for years about, ISO this and ISO that. But that clarified, and I don't even bother to ask about it anymore.
Thanks. Anybody else need to address the board? Yes, sir. Mr. Fisher.
My name is Bill Fisher, and I own several residences here in St. Genevieve also. My only question is, as far as what the fire chief had talked about, how much more are we willing to pay in taxes? The road district came to us several years ago and they got an increase on tax for one to pave county roads. That's one. And the police department come along there just a year or so later, somewhere they wanted something. The sheriff's department. Now, these guys are wanting something else also. I'm just curious, at what point does it quit? When the tax is so high, well, where does it stop? Do they want 50% of my dollar? 75% of the dollar? We're not near that, but eventually, if we keep chopping away at the iceberg, we'll have it down completely. The fire department, they do an excellent job. Don't get me wrong, they do a great job. Is there any other way they could come up with the money? Cutting the budget or stealing 10% from one of the other departments or whatever the case is? I'm just asking. Well, don't laugh at me, sir, please. I'm not laughing at you. It had stated in here that they were worried about Mississippi Lime Company. Well, if Mississippi Lime Company wants them being a large business, if they want to purchase a vehicle, let them purchase their own vehicle. I don't see where it's my responsibility or anyone else's. And as far as what insurance I pay on houses, that's my concern. I can put my deductible at $1,000, $5,000, or put it at $10,000 deductible if I feel like it. It's nobody's concern but my own, what I pay on my insurance. I'm glad you're looking out for me, but Bill's a business guy. I'm old enough to take care of myself, and I will shop around other different companies for it. So as far as the board goes, if you can find a different way to fund it without raising our taxes, to me, look at the paperwork and see where you come with it at. I just didn't think me, and as well as all the other citizens, are willing to chop that much cash up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, if there isn't any other business?
Move to go into closed session for real estate.
Second.
Okay, roll call?
Alderman Skaggs.
Yes.
Alderwoman Zerwin. Yes. Alderman Stupi.
Yes.
Alderman Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
Alderman Okenthus.
Yes.
Alderman Ross.
Yes.
Alderwoman Brimfield.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, let's just take a